Kann man sagen, dass Hitler der Mann ihres Lebens war?
Ja, 100%.
Before the boomer generation, there was a generation called the silent generation. Those were the people born before or during the Second World War. When I was really young, you would often hear about the racist old ladies of the silent generation. Those old women would say things like foreigners don't belong here or Germans should not mix with foreigners. The situation was especially bad in nursing homes. Many senior citizens didn't want to spend their final days in a state-founded institution where migrants were taking care of them. Instead, they wanted to stay with their loved ones. This was, of course, a huge problem. Luckily, the boomers implemented strict hate speech laws to prevent those people from spreading their reactionary views. What was especially cruel and evil about the old ladies of the silent generation was that they were opposed to migration into Europe. By now, most people of the silent generation are dead. They disappeared and the boomers could finally create the wonderful multicultural society that we all love so much. I remember that when I was a little kid, my boomer teachers told me that the racist old ladies were just evil. They couldn't see the many advantages of third world mass migration because of some form of disease that they were infected with during their youth. Today, when I walk through the streets of Frankfurt and see the hordes of brown people approaching me, I think to myself, how can anyone in their right mind be against that? Why wouldn't you want to hear the wonderful sound of foreign languages mixed with the exotic smell of different cultures? Something horrific must have happened to the poor girls of the silent generation. Someone or something must have turned them into evil and racist bigots. In this video, I want to find out why the girls born before 1945 were horrible traditionalists until they died, while the women born after 1945 became the wonderful liberal feminists that we all love so much. Before 1945, the German government suppressed many progressive voices. In 1933, psychoanalysts like Wilhelm Reich pointed out that the family is the root of fascism. Because of his Jewish heritage, this truth was suppressed until after the war. The evil Nazi regime set the whole LGBTQ movement back by decades. Wilhelm Reich didn't only rightfully point out that families are evil, he also stated that children are not sexualized enough in traditional societies. In his view, children are sexual beings. Wilhelm Reich was a big supporter of the theories of Sigmund Freud, which had the same heritage and therefore was unfortunately also suppressed by the Nazi regime. But of course, Reich wasn't the first person to discover the evil nature of the traditional family. As early as in 1884, Friedrich Engels wrote, "The modern individual family is founded on the open or concealed domestic slavery of the wife." Karl Marx added, "The upbringing of the children becomes a public affair." Communist and socialist feminists like Alexandra Kollontai criticized how the family reinforced gender roles. She promoted comradely love and state-supported childcare as alternatives to marriage and the traditional family. The problem with families in a communist society can be summarized as follows. The traditional family preserves private property and patriarchy. It reproduces class society by passing down wealth and social roles. It conditions children into accepting capitalist values. Even today, we can see the consequences of women that don't have the advantage of going to university. Here in this chart, we can see that young white women that don't attempt university often hold racist, evil, and traditionalist views. The majority of white Zoomer women that weren't exposed to the wonderful teachings of the boomer truth regime lean right-wing. This is a huge parallel between Germany's darkest chapter and the modern society. While midwits in the Third Reich became indoctrinated by the state with racist propaganda that turned poor right-leaning girls into completely based individuals, the modern state-founded institutions helped the right-leaning Zoomer girls to become wonderful feminists. If it wasn't for the left controlling the institutions, many great achievements of the modern world wouldn't be possible. Trans children would suffer by being refused from taking puberty blockers, and many Indian men would not be able to invest in a wide variety of online prostitutes. It is especially important to point out that there is no huge genetic difference between the girls born in 1930 and the ones born in the 1990s. They are basically the same people genetically speaking. It's just that one of them were indoctrinated with an evil propaganda while the other one was not. Imagine if right-wing men would take over the institutions of a country. It would be Nazi Germany all over again. All the wonderful achievements of the Marxists and feminists would vanish and women would believe in traditional values. This is the problem about midwits. They always follow the current truth regime. Unfortunately, for the longest time in human history, Marxism and mass migration was suppressed. It was only after the great victory of the Allied forces that feminism was able to spread around the world. Unfortunately, racism, sexism, and anti-Semitism haven't been completely defeated yet. Just like the communists wrote in the 20th century, the boomer truth regime needs to completely annihilate the white traditional family before we can reach utopia. In her book Communism for Kids, Binnie Adamczak writes, "When children are raised by large democratic and anti-authoritarian institutions, food is no longer prepared in small kitchens but in public canteens. The elderly and sick are no longer cared for by so-called relatives, and cleaning of homes is no longer organized privately, then the family is completely superfluous." Although we are rapidly becoming more progressive in our current truth regime, there are still elements that prevent us from being fully egalitarian. For example, white women. White women are fundamentally racist. They not only rejected ER just because he was a little Asian psychopath, they are also the group that is least likely to date outside of their own race. When it comes to sexual transmitted diseases, white women are largely underrepresented. When it comes to voting patterns, white women are far more right-leaning than black men. If I could choose between living in a neighborhood filled with 90% white girls or a ghetto with 90% of my black male allies, I certainly know where I would want to go. But white women aren't the only problem that we are facing. More and more white Zoomers hold problematic beliefs. For example, the YouTuber European Excellence pointed out that there are certain advantages to living in a white society. Although his video about the race pill was widely praised for facts and research, I have to wonder if someone who isn't even able to respect YouTube community guidelines is able to respect the wonderful cultural enrichment our Indian brothers brought to London. The black pill community is split between two groups. There are guys like Thinking Ape and Mercer that advocate for hedonistic pleasure and hatred of white women in Group A. Those guys know that white women are the cause of all evil. They make video after video criticizing white women and argue for geomaxing. Mercer wants to import brown women for inkwells to reproduce with.
Instead, you're fabricating the shared identity through vril edits, IQ tests, skull shapes, and history spurging. You'll find your real friends through shared experience, not shared DNA. You have nothing in common with white chads or white nepo babies other than your accident of birth. You can appeal to Darwinism or whatever, but it would be pretty hilarious to talk about genetic self-interest as an inkwell, given that you aren't going to be leaving any descendants behind anyways. I'm well aware of all the science on this topic. My position is simply that these differences only matter on the group level, and as someone who won't be genetically contributing to your group, you should be only concerned with finding other people you share a lot in common with mentally and in terms of life experience, regardless of their race. Instead, start looking at politics from the perspective of what benefits you individually, rather than ideologically. For example, TERFs are trying to court the right in order to fight their battles for them on the training issue. But if we just sit back and do nothing, the TERFs will become increasingly ostracized until they're driven out of the left altogether. Whereas we as men actually benefit from the existence of trainees because we can identify as women to bypass DEI discrimination. But if we jumped in to save them now, we would be taking the heat without getting anything from them in return. And just to demonstrate how unserious our white nationalist friends are, here's a political platform that would work in the USA. We should have female-only immigration until the gender differences in singlehood have been equalized.
After one generation, this would help turn the country into a brown state. Our mixed-race sons can then continue importing even more brown women so that they won't up ending lonely. Although it might seem strange to have children that don't look like you, I am sure Heidi Klum doesn't mind that I am genetically closer to her than most of her children. The second group are creators or like European Excellence and GMG. They acknowledge that the current truth regime is targeted against white men. They acknowledge that people are not interchangeable because of genetic differences, and they know that the genetic makeup of a nation determines its culture. Instead of blaming everything on women, they see women as midwits that get indoctrinated by the state. The reason that white men are able to use the JBW card is that white people of the past had strict standards. Although it would be easy to just turn against your heritage and become a boomer, not everyone wants to live a hedonistic life. So we have the good guys that want to sell out European heritage in exchange for short-term hedonistic boomer pleasure, and guys that want to confront the boomer truth regime. As someone who loves respecting YouTube community guidelines and is very bad in pattern recognition, I of course associate with Group A. However, I do have to admit that the other group has a few advantages. I never particularly liked complaining about my life or my family.
Life is just endless opportunities. Something to look forward to. It is the opposite for me. Sleeping, closing my eyes is what I look forward to. Life has been a grind, man. A brutal grind at that. I told my mom this when I was mad one time. She was bickering about, oh, all the other kids your age are progressing in life. Oh, that old friend of yours is getting married. You know, oh, that kid you went to school with started working at a very big company. Like, at that point, I couldn't help but keep it 100%. I told her, man, like, the feeling is mutual. You are not happy with me and I am not happy with you. You talk like I thank to God every day for being born into this family. I am not. Like, what are you talking about? If I had to choose, if I was given the option to pick a family, you guys wouldn't even be in the list of 1,000 families. 1,000, bro. I would rather not be born. If God has shown me, look, man, this is the family, this is the life we are gonna give to you, I would be like, nah, man.
I also realized that white nationalists are on average much more positive and intelligent people compared to other black-pilled groups. As someone who doesn't enjoy laying down and rotting, I can see the appeal in advocating for something you truly believe in.